It's January 6th. I'm trying something a little different. My name is Phil, and you're listening to The Lip. Well, speaking of different, as a result of a fun experience that I had maybe 2 hours ago, I decided to change the show. Originally, this was supposed to be a fact or fiction episode. Now, you'll get to see this one at the end of the month. I promise. January 31st, 2026, Fact or Fiction 20. That's when that one will be out. But I was definitely feeling like I needed to change the episode, which is going to be coming out on January 10th, 2026. Because I have that simple question that I need to ask again. What are we doing? This is the seventh time I've asked this question. And I believe, truthfully, I'll never get the answer. None of us ever will. But I can promise you, I would certainly still like to ask the question. And thus, here we are. Hey, Phoenix. You by now know my pal Phoenix back there. He just sort of joining the show. Just sort of sitting back on the couch, listening to me talk. But the question is, what are we doing? Well, for starters, I said I was doing something a little different. As you can see, I got a mic in front of me now. I've upgraded a little bit. Just a little bit. And instead of using my phone, which I've been using for the last 4 years and some change, I've upgraded to a tablet. Whether or not it's going to be permanent, I don't know. It all depends on how it sounds, and all depends on how it feels. You know how that goes. But truthfully, it's something a little different. So the first question that... You have something to say, pal? He realizes it's a little different. And I think he's finding it a little strange because, well, the setup is so different. He's questioning why I'm doing this. But if it feels right, I'll keep doing it. You never know. So the first question of what are we doing is just that. I mean, slight upgrade. Well, at least I think so anyway. We'll find out in time. Maybe an episode or two to get comfortable, and we'll know whether or not that if I'm going to continue doing this, or if I'm going to go back to the way it was, or maybe even try something different. Maybe even just readjust where I'm doing it at. Who knows? Many possibilities. Only one way to find out for sure is experimentation, right? And so, I'm just that frustrated by the reason why I had to change the show. The ultimate explanation will be given in the Spear of the Week, because truthfully, that is exactly why I had to change the show, because somebody needed to be speared. It's really that simple. Terrible shame the way people are. But as for now, it's time to fill in the blanks. Well, the question is, did I go all out and super extravagant in order to do what I'm considering an upgrade to the show? The answer is no. The mic was relatively inexpensive. Believe it or not, the tablet was actually pretty cheap too. And the stand that I'm using to record on, also cheap. All this stuff combined, probably $100, and considering the vast amounts of money that I've put into the show thus far, it's really a steal, truly a bargain. So the question is, did I go all out and elaborate in order to make the upgrades to the show with the mic and the tablet and all that? The answer is no. I didn't go too far out of the way. I really didn't. But I think it's going to be good enough. I believe it'll be a nice little upgrade. At least I hope so. Feels like it. I might have to adjust the light here or there. That's what I can see right now. It might be the only issue that I have. Probably going to have to work on the lighting. But if that's the biggest problem I have, hey, I'm doing pretty well, I think. But now it's time for the main event. What are we doing? My favorite question to ask because, like I said before, I have absolutely no idea what we're doing. And I'm going to start off with, of course, one of my favorite places in the world, Walmart. Now, you see, this one just blows my mind and it baffles me completely. And I imagine that anybody who is listening to this would probably feel the same way just based on the limited information that I'm going to give you. But of course, it's going to be all the information. So it's not even that much. But because it's that little, and it's everything, it really makes it ridiculous. Everybody knows by now that you can order multiple ways from Walmart. You don't have to just walk in the store anymore. You can go and have them ship products directly to your house, or you can have it waiting for you at the store. And even when you have it waiting for you at the store, you can get it in a couple different ways. You can either go inside and they can give it to you, or you can go into the parking lot where they have designated spaces for car pickup. Now, I went to go pick up some stuff that the wife had ordered, and I drove to the car pickup spots. Now, if you don't know, I'm not going to say that everybody does, but I'm going to assume that most people have done this at least once or twice, even if not at Walmart. You probably did it at some restaurant when you did car side pickup. What you do is you drive to a space, and all the spaces are designated specifically for the car side pickup. When you go to the space, you, at that point in time, have to make a phone call or send a text to wherever you're going. In my case, it was Walmart. And they then ask you what space you're in. And at that point, you just simply tell the person on the phone, or you put the number that corresponds with your space in the text message you send. And then they send you confirmation that they're going to come and give you your product. This specific Walmart that I went to had 8 spaces, and they were not arranged in a straight line. They took up essentially in 2 lanes. There was 4 spaces in each side, and the spaces were numbered in sort of evens and odds. So, for example, well, not example, what it was, spaces 1, 3, 5, and 7 were on one side, and spaces 2, 4, 6, and 8 were on the other. I was in space 2 and made sure that the designation was known that I was in space 2. And so I wait. Now, typically, it's not an overwhelming amount of time you gotta wait because usually the stuff is already packaged and they just have to have somebody take the card out where it's on and give it to you. Because when you order stuff like that, they give you a specific time and they let you know when it's ready. And so I'm waiting in the space that I told them, I believe it was space 2, and I'm just waiting for the stuff. Now, here comes the employee. He walks out, but he doesn't have my stuff yet because there was already 3 cars that were in those spaces before I got there. So I'm not really thinking anything of it. The guy walks up and he has one of those hoverboards. And he knocks on my window. He goes, "Is this for you?" And I'm like, "No, it's not." Then he proceeded to walk to the next car next to me, knocked on their door, and said, "Is this yours?" That person said, "No, it's not mine either." And then finally, 3 times the charm, I guess, he walks over to the third car, which was in space 8, and knocks on the window and says, "Is this yours?" And the person says, "Yes, this is mine. This is what I ordered." And they had the hoverboard and they put it in the car. And then they drove off. What are we doing? Why is it that me and any of these other people who were waiting to pick up products in the car lot, in the car pickup area, why are we there and had to call in the designated space so that the person would know that package A is going to space number 3, for example? If you know that package A is going to space number 3, and you know that the spaces are arranged in evens and odds, the first thing you know is that you're going to end up having to go to the odd side, and then it would be the second space, 1, 3. That's the one. Now, I was in space number 2, and the customer who ordered the hoverboard was in space number 8, which was the farthest space down. Farthest space down. What are we doing? Clearly, the space was designated as 8 for the person who had the hoverboard. I'm at space number 2. The next person was at space number 6 because there was nobody in 4. And then there was number 8. Knowing that, you would have to go to space number 8 because that's what it said on your information. Why did you go the long road and ask me and the other person if we wanted the hoverboard? I mean, what you really were doing is giving away a hoverboard for free because that person didn't even notice that you had come to my car first with the hoverboard. Now, the thing that makes this really a question of what are we doing is the fact that, well, maybe 5 seconds to 15 seconds after that person had come to my car with the hoverboard, the person who actually had my stuff came up to space number 2. Yep, here you go. Put the stuff in the car. Now, if I were a more dishonest person, I could have very easily taken the hoverboard, had it in my car. Then the person who actually had my stuff would have come, put that stuff in my car, and I could have been gone. And the person who actually wanted the hoverboard, who was 3 spaces away, would have had no idea that I had taken their hoverboard. And that's all because the person didn't bother to look at the space that they were supposed to be at. What are we doing? I mean, personally, I believe that that's like kindergarten stuff. It is, because I've said it 1,000 times. There's a couple things that you learn specifically in kindergarten, and one of those things is to stand in line, be patient, wait your turn, and they also tell you the numbers in the alphabet. You don't add or subtract, or not really spelling anything but your name, but you do know what numbers are. So how is it that, knowing that you have the number, that you would go that crazily and not even pay attention to the number that you're supposed to go to? Because how much easier would your job have been if you just went directly to where you were supposed to go? You could have been right inside, and it was cold. So that person did not have to do it. And there was probably 4 people who were in the rotation, because after I got mine, I saw 2 others coming out with things to give to the other 2 people who were waiting for stuff. So there really wasn't any reason for that person to have to hurry back. But if they did, they wouldn't have anything to do for a while, because, like I said, I believe it was me. Yeah, there was 4 people, because there was somebody in 1 who was directly across from me, and then there was the person who was in 6, and then 8. The other spaces were empty at the time, so that person got a little bit of a break. I don't know. It just seems simple to me. Why? What are we doing when it comes to stuff like that? What are we doing? I don't know. Another fun one. The last week before winter break at my kid's school, I pull in, waiting to pick everybody up for the half day. Everybody's happy. It's all joyous. Now, the way that the car line works at the kids' school is there is 2 lanes directly in front of the front door. And then there are 2 other lanes that they create in front, like next to the parking lot. Now, those 2 lanes next to the parking lot are, or not next to the parking, in the parking lot, are where the teachers generally park. But they use those so that they don't have a massive backup, because there's not a whole lot of room for the cars who are coming in for the pickup line. So there's 4 lanes. Now, I get there pretty early. Dismissal is at 2:30. And typically we line up around 2 o'clock. You start waiting. This individual was waiting there, got there before I did, and they were in the second lane, not the first one, but the second one. Now, in the front of the front door, see if I can paint you a picture. I got a lot of paintings back there, but I'm painting you a different picture, a mental picture. Think of this. The car line has those 4 lanes that I told you about. Now, specifically, it's probably, trying to use my shot put discus measurement distance here. Safe to say it's probably 400 feet roughly from the beginning of the car line to the end. And somewhere around 100 feet is the front door of the school. And at that point, there's a crosswalk so that people can get from the front door to that parking lot where the teachers park, / the other 2 lanes for the pickup line. there was a car that was all the way up to the crosswalk. Now, the crosswalk goes into the parking lot, and there's nobody in the parking lot. And sometimes, if a person is at the crosswalk and they get the attention of the security guards who are usually out there at that time, and they need to move and go somewhere else, or somebody picked up a kid early, they will tell that person to go through the crosswalk and turn around, and then they can make their way out, because there's no other way to get through once those cars start building up. And that's how it would work. Now, this person was there, and the security guard was there, was right there at the door. But instead, because there was nobody behind that person who was at the crosswalk in the second lane, they decided to straight back up. Go straight back. Like I said, I misspoke. Like I said, it was 400 feet from the beginning to the end of the car line. And the crosswalk was probably at 200 feet, because it's like the middle of the middle of the entire car line. This person then decided to back up the whole length of the 200 feet from the crosswalk all the way back to the exit so that they could turn around and go back out. Now, what made this more interesting to me was the fact that they were up at the crosswalk. They could have just waved their hand at the security guard. The security guard would have guided them so that they could get out. And like I said, and I know what you're thinking a little bit, but isn't there still 2 other lanes over there? Correct, there are. However, because we got there so early, they hadn't started to fill in lane 3 or 4, so there was nobody there. The security guard would have just waved them over, and they would have been able to pull out. Instead, this person just backs straight up, keeps going back. Now, a car pulls up behind it. I'm looking at all this through my rearview mirror now, because it's just really entertaining. And I see this person steadily trying to back up because they are not really confident in going backwards. And of course, I have a personal rule. I never, ever, ever, under any circumstances, unless I'm backing out of a parking space, I never back up ever in a parking lot. Never. Because nothing good happens. Of the many times, not that I've been in that many accidents, but of many accidents that I've had in parking lots, it's because somebody was backing up in the parking lot and wasn't paying any attention and hit me. So I'll never, ever back up in a parking lot. Ever. No reason, ever. Now, having said that, this person is slowly weaving their way backward, and like I said, in my mirror, I can see that there's a car trying to pull into that second lane, and it notices that the car is backing up, so now it stops, and now it's starting to back up. Now, you gotta understand, it's getting close to the point where people are starting to get ready to get in there now, that this car doesn't want to go back too far because there's going to be cars behind it trying to get in. And it would just create a huge mess. And it looked like it felt like an hour that this person was backing up. And it was painful to watch for me. It was really painful. Thinking that all you had to do was make that quick gesture and didn't make a left, and you could have head straight. You wouldn't have had to cause any confusion. There would have been no issues. You'd have lived happily ever after. Instead, perhaps this person was doing a CDL class, and they recognized the opportunity to do one of the tests that you have to do in order to pass your CDL. It's called straight line backing. You do it with a bus or with a truck, and you have to back the vehicle up straight in a line. It's been so long since I took the test, I can't remember how many feet it is, but it's about 100 feet, maybe 200 feet. I can't remember how far. But only thing I could think of is maybe they were trying to practice for that. Other than that, the question comes up, what are we doing? we made our lives a little more difficult than they had to be. You just had to simply make that quick gesture and turn, and you'd have been out of there in 2 seconds, and nobody would have cared. But instead, you're backing up straight and making life more difficult for you and everybody else. I don't know. But realistically, that's the whole of what we're doing here when it comes to what are we doing, because everything that's involved in this has somebody doing something that doesn't make any sense. And on that same note, one of my favorites, two very special drivers, and it seems like all of these have to do with cars. Three of them are now drivers now, because here comes the third of the things that I noticed that made me ask the question, what are we doing, for the seventh time? And it directly involves driving. Now, I've mentioned more than once that I'm a mechanic. I haven't practiced since 2016, but if you give me a car that's from 2016 till about 95, I feel pretty comfortable doing general operations. The stuff that's newer with the traction, not the traction control, I've dealt with that. With the lane departure systems, I've never actually gotten to work on that. Driven vehicles that had it, but not one came in that required that attention from me. But I can assure you that I have inspected a great many a vehicle in my time, because I had my state inspection license, and I did inspections on a number of cars. I couldn't tell you or put my finger on how many I actually did, but I can tell you that it was, for a couple of years there, I probably did more than 4 or 5 a week, give or take, roughly, because of the rules of inspection. You're allowed to be able to do as many safety inspections in the state of Pennsylvania as you wanted, but there was a limit of 8 emission inspections. And I did not have my emissions license, and there were plenty of people who I worked with at times who had their emissions license and didn't have their safety license. So we kind of teamed up on that. If they had a safety, they would do the safety. I'd do the safety, they do the emissions. Or then I would also work with a master tech at one of the shops that I worked at, and he would throw me the bone and let me do the safety, because he was only allowed to do 8 full inspections because of the emissions only being able to run 8. So after he ran 8, he would then, what's the other way around? Am I that forgetful? I think I am. How stupid am I? It's the other way. How stupid. I mean, I haven't done it in that long. I forgot that little detail. It's the other way around. You can run emissions all day, but you can't run safety. And that's why he threw me the safety inspection, because he could run the emissions all day, but he could only do the safety inspection, only 8 of those. So after he did 8, he would then do more emissions, and I would then take a couple of his safeties. Made a little money, but it made sense. Good job. He got some, I got some money. Worked, everybody wins. Now, where am I going with that long-winded explanation about PA state inspection and emissions? Well, turns out that last month, which is not a whole long time ago, because it's the 6th of January, we're talking December. I could have really gone crazy. It was last year. But I was driving down the road, and immediately the safety inspector antenna went off, and I saw this car that had a broken rear view mirror on the driver's side. And immediately I thought, oh, well, if I was inspecting this car, you fail. And then I just sort of thought it to myself. And then all of a sudden, I took a second look and I saw the door was swinging back and forth. As in, the striker bolt was broken or the latch wasn't connecting on the driver's side door. And it was just sort of swaying in the wind. Every single time he moved the steering wheel just a little bit, you could see the driver's door open about half an inch. And we're not talking like it was, that position where you don't quite close it all the way and it moves a little bit until you finally pull the door all the way shut. No. I'm talking like the door was boom, open. You could see daylight. This car was in bad shape. And I understand sometimes people have to do what they have to do. But when it comes to the driver's side door or any of the doors that are not closing, that's a problem. Like, what are we doing? Like, really, what are we doing? At that point, I would hope that somebody would maybe try to get a ratcheting strap maybe and open up the back window and put that ratcheting strap around there so you could at least get that door shut as tight as you can and make up your mind to either Dukes of Hazzard it, for those of you who don't know, younger people. That would mean climbing it out the window, or you could just use the other door on the other side, the passenger side, but never mess with that other door again until you get it fixed, because that's really dangerous. Really dangerous. I don't care if you have a seatbelt or not. That door opening and closing. Now think about it like this. I know it's not necessarily going to say that, well, if you're wearing a seatbelt, you're not going to go flying out the door. That's not the dangerous part of it. It's really not. The dangerous part about the door not staying on its hinge, not staying all the way shut, is that if it comes open, it now can be a problem for other cars that could get hit by the door when it's opening. That's where the problem comes in. It becomes a danger to others around you, not necessarily just you. It becomes a bigger problem. And it's just dangerous. I mean, man, I don't know. And I asked that question when I saw it. What are we doing? Scary version, you got into an accident. You couldn't afford to fix the car. Okay. At least, like I said, get a ratcheting strap, put it around the door, on the driver's door, and weed it through on the back seat, the back door, so that sucker doesn't open. At least you're never gonna pass the safety inspection in Pennsylvania, or well, hopefully anywhere else. But at the very least, the door is not gonna go swinging open, and that's just it's no good. It's just no good. And again, I ask the question, what are we doing? Really, what are we doing? Whew. All right. New Year's Eve, 2025. Last day and last thing I'm going to talk about in the main event. Saw some more weirdo stuff. Weirdo people. Just trust me, I'm going to have a whole episode that's going to feature pretty much what I'm talking about right now. And it's incredible to me. It really, really is. I'm going to start off by saying I was listening to one of my favorite boxers, Lennox Lewis, love the guy. He is, in my opinion, just one of the best pure boxers that has ever lived. 6'5", 240, 250, big, strong guy, powerful right hand. But he could move and he could think, and he was a smart guy. He wasn't going to just go out there and bruise with you. He was going to be tactical, throw the jab when he had to, look for the opening, get that big right hook. But man, he did an interview one time and talking about this guy tried to fight him on the street. And when he was fighting the guy, he was bobbing and weaving and dodging all these wild punches. And he said it was like he went into a slow motion mode. And he said, I can't believe how much better of a fighter I am than this guy. It's just off the charts. I'm that much better than him. And it's so obvious that I'm so much better than this guy that it's not even worth me knocking him out. Now, when it comes to this person that I'm going to talk to about on New Year's Eve, I'm in that same boat. I've already said that, like, I count on my hand a few people who I believe are better overall drivers than I am. Different things they can do, things that they've done, abilities they have behind the wheel. I believe that I'm that guy. I can do some stuff behind the wheel. But I'm not stupid either. I know now at 47, some of the things that I did when I was 27 that I could get away with now doing if I wanted to. Probably not the smartest thing to do. And so I don't do a lot of the things that I would be capable of doing. I slow down on that. Like, won't make any sense. Don't make any sense. Especially now. I love my tracks. I'm not going to do some wild stuff that I could probably get away with. Because, especially now where I live now, there's so many people with those stupid stickers on their car. Be patient. New driver. I ain't got time for that. I just don't. And so, to the point. I was on my way to picking my mother up from dialysis on New Year's Eve. And I'm cruising down the road, and there's a spot where I go behind a few businesses, and the road takes me behind them. And sometimes there's vehicles coming on the other side. Sometimes there's delivery vehicles or garbage trucks that are there, and you just gotta either walk or drive around it or wait for it to go by. Now, I'm driving down the road, and there's this Dodge Ram behind me, who is clearly somebody that makes me feel like Lennox Lewis when it comes to driving. He's looking and wondering why I'm driving the way that I'm driving, because I stop at stop signs and I go through them when they're clear. And I look in front of me, and what I see is a tractor trailer which can't get past because the cars that are on its right on this road, it's kind of narrow, but the trucks, they're allowed to go through it. And so I see this truck, and it's probably 500 feet in front of me at the time. Little more than a football field. And I can see it because I'm crossing the street, and I know it's right there. It's right there. By the time I get up to a point where I'm about 100 feet in front of it, I stop. Because it has more than enough space to get around me and go. No big deal. Now, this Mensa member who was driving this Dodge Ram, who was behind me, saw me stopped for a second, and then decides to, in a no passing lane, pass me on the left And I'm looking at him like, okay, idiot, I don't understand. Your Dodge Ram is high enough where you should be able to see over my tracks. But maybe it's because his IQ is so low, he couldn't understand what I was doing. As I stopped, he then goes past me, and look what's in front of him. The tractor trailer is right in his face, probably 10 feet in front of him. He then stops. I then wisely turn left because now he's created a situation where the truck can't go by, and now it's clogging up the entire area. So now I go left and find another way around and make it out. After some finagling, apparently he got past and then got around, and I just looked at him and I just laughed as I was driving on the other side. We came out to the same point, but he had to now deal with all that extra when I just was not willing to. In the process, he looked like an idiot, and I was just the person who knew what I was doing. What are we doing? What are we doing? You see, even when I was in my 20s and I was, how do they put it in National Treasury, Sean Ben? Doing activities of questionable legality when it came to cars. I always would be the person who would drive and see somebody in front of me doing something. That's why nobody's ever and will never get me with a brake check. It's never going to happen. Because I think, I don't know, like chess or head. Because what I want to know is if somebody in front of me is slowing down, my instinct is, what do they see that I don't? That just seems common sense to me, and I thought that from 20. I've been driving almost 30 years. No, I've been driving. This can be 31. I always look at the person in front of me when they're hitting their brakes. I immediately don't go, oh, I can't believe you're hitting your brakes there. No. I ask myself, what do you see that I don't see? That's what I always ask. Because apparently you hit your brakes for a reason. And that's why one of the first things that they taught us in CDL training, always leave yourself an out. Between always leaving myself an out and having the mindset and mentality of, what do you see that I don't see? I avoid little things like that. Instead, that guy almost, and yeah, it's probably wrong of me to say, it would have been fun to see him just like run into the tractor trailer because of the stupidity that he had. But you know what? Maybe he learned a lesson. I highly doubt it. But maybe he did. But I can only ask the question, what are we doing? What are we doing? Really, what are we doing? No other way to ask it. But that's what I want to know. And realistically, all of those situations, I'll never get the answer to what they were thinking or why. Because clearly they weren't thinking. Because if you were thinking, you wouldn't have done the things that I asked the question about. Because it's illogical. If you're thinking clearly, you wouldn't do those things. You just wouldn't. You really wouldn't. I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm getting old and crotchety that I ask these questions because they just make sense to me now that I'm older. I don't know. Or maybe it's just because it just makes sense. Maybe that's a concept that some of these people just don't get. I can only assume. And on that note, I certainly am going to ring the bell and end the main event. And as a result, I'm going to go directly into the spirit of the week before we get into football. Like I said earlier, I changed my episode to this for this week because I had no plans on doing this until the end of the month. But some lady at the store just made me absolutely have to do this. I'm pulling into an Acme because I'm like 7 o'clock and I needed to get something for dinner. I forgot to get earlier when I was out shopping. And so I go in the parking lot and there's a lady in a parking space and she is... let me paint you another picture. There's 4 spaces, right? The lady is on the right in the back, and there's nothing in front of her. I'm pulling up to a space that's next to the empty space in front of hers. Now, directly next to her, she just emptied her cart, and she put the cart in the space as I was pulling up to park. So I couldn't drive through the space because she left her cart there. Why? Why would you do that? If you had walked that cart literally 6 inches in the other direction, you would have put it in a space where nobody was at. What are we doing? We're making you the spear of the week for that. Because you put that stupid cart directly in front of me. Now, I had 2 choices, and one of them was, speaking of things that I've kind of gotten good at, I haven't done it in a while, so I'm a little out of practice, and I don't feel like scratching up my cayenne orange paint job. But one of the things I learned how to do while working at ShopRite was hitting a shopping cart just enough to make it move smoothly. And you can direct it just a little bit if you turn the wheel just enough with your car, and you can make the steering, you can make the cart turn. It's a specialty skill. It took me about a month to figure it out, and quite a few scratches. Fortunately, it was on a piece of junk Ford that I owned, so I didn't care about bumping into stuff. But I got good at it to the point where now I could... Well, last time I did it was probably... it was in the 2000s. I still had my Optima. So it was probably somewhere between 2018 and 2020, last time I did it. Knocked the cart right out of the space cleanly and put it in another spot. It was like playing pool. And if you get good enough at it, it kind of is like playing pool. But that's neither here nor there. But what I did was I sat there. I didn't turn off my car. I waited until this idiot decided to drive forward. And the second she drove forward, I parked in her space by driving around the cart and putting myself where she was. And the thing that makes me really want to spear that lady is the fact that she looked at me. And granted, I have the tinted windows so she couldn't actually see me. But she looked directly at my car. I don't know who you are. I don't want to know who you are. But you're definitely the spear of the week. Now, Speaking of something that needs to be speared, I'm telling you, I had a pretty good week 16, getting every single one of my picks right. I had an excellent week 15, getting 4 out of 5. Just did great. And then came week 17 and week 18. Man, week 17 didn't do so good. One of my worst weeks. I was 1 and 4. And guess what? Week 18 was no better because these teams that I picked were all pretty much playoff teams who didn't care. 3 out of the 4 games I picked, or 3 out of the 5 games I picked, were teams that did not care. And they played like they did not care. Now, the one team that really cared was the Jacksonville Jaguars because they didn't want to lose face, and that's the only game I got right. I picked the Jaguars to crush the Titans. I said 35-21. The Jaguars said, nah, 41-7. We're going to eat these guys up, and we're going to prove to everybody, yeah, we are a playoff team. We are that good. And they did it. No complaints at all. Now, I thought that the Chargers would have a little bit of heart and want to fight a little harder against the Broncos. They did not. It was 19-3 Broncos. I lost. The Eagles and the Commanders, man, come on. I mean, the Eagles are a playoff team. The Commanders, they have already booked their vacations. In fact, the second they left the stadium, they were probably on the flight to their vacation destination. And yet, I picked the Eagles 35-17, just going to blow them away, feel pretty good about themselves. Instead, no. What they did was they ended up getting beat by a team that is using, I don't know, a guy that they saw walking down the street pushing a shopping cart full of cans as their quarterback. And he beat the Philadelphia Eagles 24-17. Eagles didn't care about losing the game, but have a little pride. Apparently they didn't. So I think that it's going to definitely affect what I'm going to pick for the playoffs. The Packers, speaking of having no pride, they lost to the Vikings 16-3. I mean, these teams, it's like they didn't even try. Now, the 49ers, they had something to play for, something real to play for. The number 1 seed, a team that was beaten up all year long and got to the point where they had an opportunity at the 1 seed without future Hall of Famer Trent Williams, potential future Hall of Famer Fred Warner, and I think the jury's out still, but if he continues the way he's playing, who knows what Bosa's going to end up being. But those were 3 all-pro players out all year, and they still got within a game of home field advantage and the NFC West Championship. But I'm starting to wonder if it was just too much. I had them winning that game in a close one, 30-27, but apparently both defenses showed up when I didn't expect it, and it ended up being 13-3 Seattle. So the final things of Week 18 for me was loss, win. Packers lose to the Vikings. Eagles lose to the Commanders. 49ers lose to the Seahawks. Chargers lose to the Broncos, but somebody who had a little bit of pride in their work. Wouldn't you say, well, I know your Panthers were good and they won. I know, they won. I believe that your Panthers, no. Panthers didn't win that week. No, they didn't. Panthers lost. They lost to Tampa Bay. Yeah, the Panthers lost to Tampa Bay. That's exactly what happened. The Panthers lost to Tampa. Yeah, they lost. They didn't win. But they still had a fun, fruitful game. Right? Yeah, they had a good game, but they had some weird penalties. They didn't win. But I was 1-4 this week, and my regular season total is 52-38. That is not a bad way to go. Wait, 52-38. I'm relatively pleased with that. Not going to complain. Not going to complain at all. But as for these playoffs, I promise you right now, I have no stock in any of these picks. Zero. I'm just as likely to be win every one of these 6 matchups as I am to be wrong on every one of these. It can go either way on all of them. I don't trust any of them. If I was going to put money on any of these games, I wouldn't put money on any of them. None. I would not bet on any of these games personally. It's just as likelihood that I'm saying the Rams are going to win against the Panthers 20-24. That's what my pick is. I'm saying that. But it's just as likely that the Panthers can win. It really is. I mean, Packers and Bears. This is going to be the third time those two teams play each other. And I've said it a million times, and I'll say it a million more. It is difficult to beat a team if you play them 3 times. It really, really is. So, either one of them, and like I said, the only thing I would say about that is, well, the Packers, they didn't have any pride in themselves. So, the Bears, I think, are going to win 21-20. Bills and Jaguars, well, I think Jaguars may win the whole thing. That's just a small insight to what I'm thinking. I think Jacksonville could very easily win the Super Bowl. And I expect them to beat the Bills 30-20. 49ers and Eagles. Again, Eagles had no pride in their work. 49ers are too beat up. The best thing that can happen is it's a draw and they eliminate both teams. I really don't think that either one of them deserve to be in the playoffs. They won enough games. They did what they had to do. But let's face it. If either of those teams played somebody else, I believe they're both eliminated. Both. The only reason that one of them's going to advance is because they're playing each other. If they weren't playing each other, one of them, they would both be eliminated. I have no faith in the 49ers in this game. I'm not going to lie. I don't. They have to come from California to Pennsylvania with a beat-up team. I mean, I honestly believe that they were playing on life support all year long, and I think that just maybe it might be time to pull the plug. But on the same note, the Eagles, what are they doing? I don't know. Just as quickly as the life support might be pulled on the 49ers, somebody might slip and pull the plug on the Eagles. But because the 49ers are my guys, I'm going to say 24-21. Since there are no ties in the playoffs, 49ers win against the Eagles. But again, it wouldn't surprise me if this score is 24-21 Eagles either. Or 13-3 Eagles, or 13-3 49ers, or 48-42 Eagles, 49-41 49ers. It could be anything. Who knows what the score is going to be? Who knows? No clue. No idea. None. None whatsoever. Chargers and Patriots. Again, it's a coin flip. I think that Drake May is a fun guy to watch. I saw a couple Patriots games, and I think that he could be their quarterback of the future. I'm not going to say he's going to win 6 Super Bowls, but I'm going to say he's going to be around for a while. But I like what Jim Harbaugh does with quarterbacks. He's definitely a quarterback whisperer, and I'm kind of rooting for him a little bit. because he was the 49ers coach and he had such great success in San Francisco. I think the Patriots get upset, but I wouldn't be upset if they won. It wouldn't surprise me. I'm saying Chargers 28 just because, Patriots 20 just because. Now, I have no faith in this game because, well, the Steelers get to the quarterback and the Texans let people get to their quarterback. That's a pretty telling stat. It almost really feels like the Texans, even though their defense is, in my opinion, way better, I think their defense is more complete. It's younger, it's healthier, it's better. I believe it's better than the Steelers. I think that old master, as I want to call him, that's what he is. He's a master. He's old and he's a master of this game. And you look at the AFC, all the quarterbacks that are in here, Josh Allen, Trevor Lawrence, I can't remember the kid in the Chargers name. I don't know why. Jared Herbert. Herbert is the guy in San Diego. Drake May. I like to call C.D. Stroud the baby face assassin. Man, he just looks like he's got such a baby face. All these guys. And then you look at what's his name? Bo Nix in Denver. These guys are green when it comes to the playoffs. Yeah, they've won a game around here or there. Have any of those guys won an AFC championship? No. And that old master, he is old, he's a graybeard, Aaron Rodgers, has won the Super Bowl. From pretty much the same position that he's in right now. He was 14-2 a couple times, 12-4, 1 seed, didn't get anything done. But when he had a 10-6 team that got hot, he won the Super Bowl. He's the only guy who's been through every round of the playoffs, including and won the Super Bowl in the AFC. And just because of his experience, and the defense has a little bit more aggressiveness, I think that he could win most of the games until they get to Jacksonville. And I do stress Jacksonville. I don't think that there's going to be much that the Steelers are going to be able to do with them, or anybody for that matter. So I'm seeing the Steelers beat the Texans in a close one because of that defense, 20-17. But like I said, every one of these games, every score that I mentioned could very easily be reversed. And it could be completely different. I said Rams over Panthers. Sorry, Phoenix. Packers lose to the Bears. Jaguars beat the Bills. 49ers beat the Eagles. Chargers beat the Patriots. And Steelers beat the Texans. And every single one of those games could be completely wrong. Scores can be much wider or even closer. I have no idea whatsoever what to expect. And in truth, isn't that what you want? You don't want to be able to say, well, the 49ers are going to win 49-10 against the Eagles. You want to be like, who knows? Who knows? Flip a coin. Carolina could just as easily be in the NFC Championship, in my opinion, amongst these teams. They could just as easily be in the NFC Championship against Seattle as any of these teams. Any of them. In the AFC, the only thing that I would say is a sure thing is probably the Pittsburgh Steelers, because that's the one team that has that guy who's been all the way. Now, in the NFC, the Rams have that one old gray beard, Matthew Stafford, who has, but then so has Jalen Hurts, he's gotten to and won a Super Bowl. Brock Purdy has gotten to a Super Bowl. I mean, who knows? Who knows? I think you could literally just take all the teams in both sides of the playoffs and just put them in a bag, put their names in a bag, and just pull out one from the AFC, pull out one from the NFC, and say, okay, here you go, Super Bowl. And it wouldn't matter which one, because I think that that's what they are. I mean, there's no, in my opinion, there's no clear-cut favorite to win this thing. There really isn't. And as much as I love the 49ers, I do see how weak they are at the moment. But having said that, they did what they did. They could just as easily be having a home game of the Super Bowl. Who knows? That's why this year's playoffs could be a lot of fun. And that's where my picks are going to go. But now it's time to shut down the show a little bit. As I've said a lot of times, join us. I'm going there first. Join us. The Facebook group, the LIP Facebook group. Join us. There's always room for one more. Want to try to get to 100 before the end of the month. Join us. Be that 100th person, right? It's like the LIP Media Productions would so enjoy having that, right? Check me out on Instagram, Philip Henderson. Philip Henderson 5102. Check out the content they got there. But beyond important, I mean, heck, the show is here on YouTube. Subscribe to @PhilTheLip. Check out all my content. That's just pretty much what we need to do. Now, it's time for the words of wisdom. Okay. Now, considering all the people that I experienced throughout the question of what are we doing, I would certainly say that if any of these people were to be in close contact to me and were to hand me their business card, there's no question that I would have these words to say to them. Thank you for your business card. Now I know what number not to call. Once again, to all those weird people who made me ask the question, what are we doing? If they hand me their business card, I would simply say, thank you for your business card. Now I know who not to call. Well, that about does it. My name is Phil, and you just listened to The Lip.